What is up, everybody? It's June 30th, and yes, the filibuster, who knows, might not be saving anybody, right? It's June 30th, 2026, and the Supreme Court, or I guess you could say the House, essentially just blocked the essentially Save America Act, which would basically have banned birthright citizenship, which would have secured our elections a little bit more during election cycles. Now we are in a position where essentially this has been banned. And we're finding out that, again, Amy Barrett, who is one of the Supreme Court justices, has a Haitian child. So maybe there's a little bit of a conflict of interest here. And so we're looking into these politics. We're looking into why the Save America Act was actually not passed. And again, it's a lot. This is the country we're living in. You know, this is the state of the United States of America, where we don't want secure elections. We don't care about secure elections. We don't need that. What we need is unsecure elections. We need a banana republic. That's what everybody wants, right? That's what's good for America, according to our Supreme Court, of course. They care about us so much that they want illegals and illegal immigrants voting in your elections. Isn't it wonderful? Doesn't that just make you silly with total, absolute pride in your country? Like, man, I'm just so happy to live in America, where we have this country where we are completely always shooting ourselves in the foot. And again, allowing illegals to vote. I mean, who doesn't want that? Allowing illegals to vote is everything. That's what we want. We want illegals voting. That makes the most sense. And for some reason or another, I don't know why, but apparently that's what they want for our country. And that's what's great. We want more illegals, and that's going to be awesome. So again, we're going to cover that news today, and we're going to cover everything else going on in the media, everything else that's going on in the public today. It's going to be an interesting show. It's going to be an interesting day, because honestly, not a lot of news besides that. Ultimately, it's essentially 105 degrees here in Michigan, where I'm at. So again, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Be sure to support the show, support the information, and let's get right into it. Again, Nick Fuentes ended up predicting a lot of this and everything that we're seeing right now. Before we get into that, just making sure that we're good to go. Honestly, it's going to be wild when we see where all of this is really heading, because as I always say, you know, it's never boring in the United States when we are leading the way in diversity and inclusion and all of this baloney, things that don't really make a difference in America, and it's really just killing our country. And so the liberals will say, yes, it's great that illegals are voting. We want illegal immigrants voting. Everybody has a right to vote. Everybody has a right to live here, even if you are just an anchor baby. We want more of that. That's good. And of course, those people are your lowest IQ of the masses in America. And then we have the common sense Americans who don't want corrupt elections. We don't want to live in a communist country. We don't want to live in a nation that is run like a banana republic where anybody can vote. But in America, that's what we're doing, thanks to our Supreme Court. So again, let's take a look at what's really going on, and let's take a look at the news here. Again, Nick Fuentes ended up predicting a lot of this. That's what we're going to kind of cover first. Just getting everything hooked up here. There we go. So when we get started on this is just, again, this is crazy. He predicted all of this. Whether you like him or not, a lot of people have negative opinions on Nick Fuentes, but he said all of this on his show last night, basically predicted exactly what was going to happen.
Trump passed an executive order saying that his government will not recognize the citizenship of people that are born to illegal aliens, setting up a legal battle. And he probably knew that. But he passed an executive order saying that anybody that is born to an illegal alien, or even someone on a visa, can no longer be considered a citizen and is therefore an illegal alien, which is a pretty sweeping reinterpretation of the 14th Amendment. And everybody applauded this. And I think it's a good thing. I'm glad that he did it. This is good. And I support overturning automatic birthright citizenship.
But
here's the rub, though. As of today, this executive order has been challenged by 22 U.S. states and a few U.S. cities. They say that the president cannot determine who is a citizen and who isn't, and they also say that this is in contravention of the 14th Amendment.
Which it is not.
There is an extremely good chance that the Supreme Court will throw this out because the executive branch cannot reinterpret citizenship in the 14th Amendment. And there's a very good chance that the Supreme Court will strike it down because they will uphold birthright citizenship for illegal aliens, according to the letter of the law of the 14th Amendment. And all you have to do is look at the composition of the court. I don't believe Amy Coney Barrett. I don't believe that the Chief Justice Roberts. I don't think that either of them are going to vote to overturn this. So it's very unlikely.
And they did not overturn it. Or, I mean, again, at the end of the day, they supported, again, having illegal immigration and illegal immigrants voting in your elections because that makes sense. That's common sense, right? That's America first. Yes, let all the Haitians and let all the illegals and the migrants and the Muslims and the Somalis, let them all vote. Let them vote and have an opinion. But ultimately, we shouldn't be shocked about this. We already knew this was coming. If we've been watching the show, we've already seen how liberal the Supreme Court really is in the United States and how all of this really works. The politics behind it, there wasn't really getting out of this situation, truly. And so when we look at this situation, it's horrible, but it's kind of as expected. I'm not really surprised at all. A Trump-appointed justice single-handedly upheld birthright citizenship. No mass deportations, no border wall, no termination of birthright citizenship. If Republicans can't or won't do anything about immigration, then why vote for them? So I totally see what he's saying. That was what Trump ran on, was to close the border of the United States. That was what Trump ran on, was to secure the borders of the United States. Now, although Trump himself might want these things, he basically was the reason Amy Coney Barrett was essentially, appointed to this position in the Supreme Court, where, of course, all of her positions have been extremely liberal. And again, single-handedly, this entire thing basically was stopped in the House and not voted on. Again, protecting birthright citizenship for illegal immigrants, and now basically allowing these same people to vote in elections. So how do you think that's going to change the course of the 2028 election, per se? Now, maybe there's going to be something that's going to be done at a further date. That just means that they can't really roll in this entire bill into the NDAA. So essentially, they have to make other adjustments and amendments and put it into another bill. And essentially, then that can go to the Senate, and so on. So ultimately, again, it's a huge L for America. It's a huge L for the Supreme Court. We also, honestly, at the end of the day, there was some good things that came out of it. You had a lot of Supreme Court justices who were actually in favor of it. But overall, the Supreme Court ruled that the 14th Amendment guarantees birthright citizenship to children born in the United States, including those who were parents are in the country unlawfully or temporarily, striking down President Trump's executive order. So again, this is the current version of this. When we look at this, the question presented is whether the Constitution guarantees citizenship to children born in the United States, parents who are unlawfully or temporarily present in the country. Under the Citizenship Clause of the 14th Amendment, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and the state wherein they reside. On January 20th, 2025, President Trump used Executive Order number 14160, titled Protecting the Meaning and Value of American Citizenship. The order provides that children born in the United States of parents who are unlawfully or temporarily present here are not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States, and thus do not qualify for citizenship under 14th Amendment, and under the 14th Amendment or the Immigration and National Security Act. So again, which uses the same language, 90 Federal Regulation 8449. Several parents filed lawsuits, some in the name of their children, arguing that the executive order violates the 14th Amendment and the INA. The district court agreed, provisionally certified a nationwide class of children who would be denied citizenship by the order. A preliminary enjoined the order's enforcement. This court granted certiorari before judgment held children born in the United States to parents unlawfully or temporarily present are subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. So let's read that again. Children born in the United States to parents unlawfully or temporarily present are subject to jurisdiction. Unlawfully. So if you're here unlawfully, you're subject to jurisdiction. Don't you worry, you're fine. You get to vote. you're an American citizen. You can be here unlawfully, but that means that you're lawfully an American citizen even though you're here unlawfully. It says it right here. But hey, we're America. We just kind of throw away the true meaning of our entire Constitution, right? So again, present to the birth under the 14th Amendment citizenship. The citizenship clause must be understood in light of historical context from the English common law to the widespread condemnation of the court's decision on Dred Scott versus Sanford, 19 Howard 393. So again, when we look at that entire bill, I think that's just insane. It says right there, if you're here unlawfully, don't worry, you're still here. You're an American citizen, even if you're here unlawfully. That's the most insane thing I think I've read since Trump has been elected, possibly. Maybe beside H.R. 8800, Section 218 of the National Defense Authorization Act of fiscal year 2027, which allows the Israelis to have control over the United States government and our military, essentially, which I still think is probably going to pass in the Senate. It's already passed in the House. So who knows? CIA might stop that. I don't really know. A lot of UN people, a lot of people who are working for the United Nations, again, former UN's weapons inspector Scott Ritter disagrees with that, but who knows? We've been making a lot of stupid decisions. Congress has never been smart, really, and the Supreme Court had a lot to do with this because, again, Amy Coney Barrett single-handedly essentially struck down this entire bill, the Save America Act, which would require birthright citizenship to no longer be a thing for unlawful Americans, illegal immigrants, for example. So now those same people get to vote in elections, and that's kind of absolutely crazy. And there will be liberals who are watching this show who will say, you're just a racist, you don't understand. And it's like, no, you're just stupid and you don't understand. You don't understand what's happening. You don't understand how so many of these third worlders who are coming over to the United States are truly trying to take over our government, and they're winning. And you look at the Supreme Court today and look at what's happening, the people voting for this. It's absolutely insane. You know, House GOP agenda stuck over the SAVE Act again. So again, when we look at the summary of this, more than a dozen House Republicans tanked a procedural vote for the must-pass defense bill, once again over the GOP's signature election bill, the SAVE Act. The SAVE Act has become a recurrent source of chaos for House Republicans, repeatedly derailing procedural votes and stalling unrelated legislation. The House has already passed the bill 3 times, but it's well short of the necessary votes in the Senate, where Democratic support is needed to pass it. House conservatives have mounted a pressure campaign to force Senate Republicans to abolish the filibuster and pass the bill. But the effort has so far gained little traction in the chamber. Just last week, Speaker Mike Johnson was forced to scrap votes and end the House work week early after conservatives made clear they would block the legislation on the floor over the Senate's failure to act on the SAVE. So again, this is just a small encapsulation of what's happening in the United States of America, right? You see all the things happening in the UK, and we think the UK is so corrupt and America is so great because we have guns and we have the people and we can fight back. Well, it's kind of hard to fight back when your own Supreme Court is basically working against the interest of true Americans, actual Americans, legal Americans, tax-paying Americans like yourself who are actually doing their part and paying taxes, going to work at a job instead of collecting EBT card money and basically living off of the system and the welfare and basically abusing our system. And now those same people get to vote. People who can't even speak English, people who were born here yesterday by an illegal immigrant, well, they're here. And they're here, they're Americans now, and they get to call themselves Americans. And we get to pay for them as American taxpayers. Isn't that amazing? Don't you feel great? Don't you feel like we should definitely not have a revolution? I agree. I mean, it would just be so insane. So again, House Conservatives block rule advancing the NDAA, stalling key bills. Yeah, 14 Republicans were traitors to the American people. This is why they're going to lose in the midterms. This is all. It's all because we're in Israel. We're all forgetting about 800, the National Defense Authorization Act of the fiscal year, Section 218, which basically tie the Israeli government with its government and basically our intelligence agency, and they have all data information. And such as the CIA and the Pentagon has already classified Israel as the greatest national security threat to the United States. At the same time, it looks like Republicans, they're working for Israel. They're taking the PAC money. There's no Haitians who hate your country, and Muslims taking over churches so they can create mosques out of them in a country that is like a banana republic in a third world country, and a socialist if you enjoy that. So again, this comes from The Hill. A band of hardliners Tuesday blocked a procedural rule that would have teed up debate and final votes on a slate of legislation dealing the blow to Speaker Mike Johnson as he aimed to advance the annual defense authorization bill this week. The lower chamber voted 198 to 224 to reject the rule, with 14 Republicans joining Democrats in opposing the measure due to objections about the Save America Act, the priorities of the House, and a niche person issue. So again, GOP reps Tim Burchett, Eric Burleson, Eli Crane, Randy Fine, Andy Harris, Paulina Luna, Max Miller, Chip Roy, Keith Self, Victoria Spartz, Mike Turner, Thomas Massey, and Lauren Boebert voted against the rule. House Majority Leader Steve Scalise also switched his vote to no so Republican leaders could call the bill back up. Interesting. The vote continues the paralysis of the House floor, where several conservatives had ground most activity to a halt amid frustrations that the Senate has yet to take action on the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Save America Act, a voter ID bill pushed by President Trump. The rule on Tuesday included language that would have merged the Save America Act with the National Defense Authorization Act once it passed the House, sending both measures to the Senate in one package through a special procedure calling basically the merging. Johnson, after the vote, expressed the frustration at the Republican voting against advancing the defense bill, saying that by consequence also voted against the Save America Act. A couple of members, if you ask me why they voted no, they'll say it was out of frustration from Senate Democrats refusing to do so with the American people and will work on election integrity. Johnson said, "It makes no sense for us to stop our very important progress. That's where when you people happening within the same bill, so that way you didn't get this entire Israeli of them basically. Again, if we're dividing those bills, maybe not the worst thing. And I look at the people who are voting against this, kind of interesting. But at the end of the day, Tim Burchett, you look at Thomas Massey. What's the real reason there? Doesn't seem like it's very clear when you read the headlines. Again, from Politico also wrote an article about it. I think it's just wild. When you really see where things are heading, it's just like, come on, like common sense. Like, this is common sense. We can't have illegal immigrants voting in our elections. House GOP leaders cancel votes, start recess early after the member rebellion. So again, all of this was apparently a move against Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House. And so basically they also didn't want this to be basically merged into the NDAA. The decision to send members home came after a rule setting up further House votes this week failed 224 to 198, with 14 Republicans voting with Democrats against the measure. Those Republicans included Majority Leader Steve Scalise, who immediately moved to reconsider the vote at a later time. Speaker Mike Johnson told reporters earlier Tuesday that Republicans would work for the next day and a half to settle the disputes and move on with the scheduled business, but he and other leaders are later determined that they could not quickly placate the holdouts and decided instead to launch a week-long July 4th recess early rather than continue to try to move the annual Pentagon bill or the fiscal 2027 spending bill for the State Department and other agencies. Also set to be left behind is a ceremonial resolution commemorating the one-year anniversary of the tax cut legislation that remains the GOP's major legislative triumph of President Donald Trump's second term. So, who really knows? When I look at it, I think it's probably not the best thing, you know? All I know for sure is we can't be living in a third world country, and we can't have the standards that we do where it's just okay to, vote legally in American elections. It's like, okay, you can't live here. We should not just allow birthright citizenship for somebody who was born in this country 5 minutes ago and by an illegal alien and who is an unlawful American. But because they're an unlawful American with their foot on U.S. soil, then they're an American citizen? Well, I guess I'll just go. I can't go and do that in Argentina. I can't go and do that in any other country. That's insane. Maybe UK, right? Maybe the UK, maybe Europe. But it's absolutely nuts. It's crazy, and it makes no sense. U.S.-Iran latest. Breaking away from that story for a moment. Again, Iran's top negotiator said country is ready for war as peace talks inch along. What to know about the Iran war today? Iran's top negotiator told state television that the country is ready for war if the U.S. doesn't fulfill its commitments. Iranian and U.S. officials traveled to Qatar but aren't expected to hold direct talks. An agreement signed 4 days ago between Israel and Lebanon links an Israeli withdrawal from Lebanon to the Iranian Ba'ath group Hezbollah being disarmed. And analysts say that could mean Israel occupying southern Lebanon indefinitely, which could continue hampering efforts towards a full U.S.-Iran peace deal. So who knows? We'll see what happens with all of that. I think that the war is going to go on personally, and I've been saying that for a long time. I think that the Iran war is not going to end until you see something done with Israel or until Israel basically achieves their goals, because Israel's running the show. Israel's calling the shots, and it seems like Trump and the Trump administration is basically bending over for whatever Netanyahu wants him to do. And that's just what it seems like to me. Even when Trump says, oh, yeah, I called Netanyahu on the phone and I said, you're crazy. Well, he ends up just bending over backwards at a later time. And same thing with Lindsey Graham. And, you have Randy Fine, our own Congress being overtaken by these Israelis. So I don't see it anytime soon happening where we're going to end this war with Iran. If anything, you're going to see the Israelis pick up the motion when it comes to taking southern Lebanon. And then with Iran, you might see some kind of MOU between the United States and Iran, but ultimately the Israelis with this HR 8800, who knows, down the road they might just pick up this war later. And again, they're going to do this in October. They're going to try to pass this bill in the Senate in October. So we're losing our country by the very minute, every single day, to the Israelis, and again to liberals and liberal policies that make no sense, and then to a boomer Congress who is truly just completely careless of the American people. And so I think it couldn't be more obvious. Iran calls Strait of Hormuz situation sensitive and complex as the U.S. sends officials to Qatar for talks. So again, Iran's foreign ministry denied Monday that the negotiators would be meeting with U.S. officials in Qatar on Tuesday after President Trump announced the talks would resume at Tehran's request. Both sides exchanged strikes over the weekend, testing fragile ceasefire. An Iranian official called the situation in the Strait of Hormuz sensitive and complex after France and Oman agreed to collaborate with international partners on demanding the vital waterway. Iran's president said Monday that the country is set to receive $6 billion in frozen assets currently held in Qatar. According to Iranian state media, the unfreezing of Iran's financial assets is one of the conditions in the U.S.-Iran's Memorandum of Understanding. So again, when we look at all of that, Iran war is picking up and doesn't seem like that's ending anytime soon. Maybe we'll see some kind of progress with the peace deal, with the MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding. We kind of hope so, right? Meanwhile, Israel won't leave Lebanon as long as Hezbollah threatens us, according to Netanyahu. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu visits troops in southern Lebanon on Tuesday, vowing that his country forces would stay in the area as long as the Iranian-backed Hezbollah remain a threat. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu visited troops in southern Lebanon on Tuesday, vowing that his country's forces would stay in the area as long as Iran-backed Hezbollah remained a threat. So again, as much as we hear the Israelis listening to the Israelis are going to stay in Lebanon. They want Lebanon. His comments came after Lebanon and Israel signed a framework agreement under the U.S. sponsorship last week to pave the way for peace for peace between them and to disarm Hezbollah. The deal makes an Israeli withdrawal from occupied Beirut by creating the Lebanese military will take over. That threat has disappeared, and as long as Hezbollah armed is here and threatening us, we will stay here, Netanyahu said according to the statement from his office. He added that we say to Iran and Hezbollah, leave this place. You no longer belong here. There are two sovereign states that want to live in peace. And again, here the Israelis are really the ones hitting Lebanon hard, bombing Christian villages. And again, people are saying, well, there's Hezbollah inside of those buildings. Well, it's like, yeah, but they're bringing down civilians in the process. And many of these are Christian villages. So who's really the aggressor here? Israel, from my analysis at least. So again, when I look at all of this, again, who really knows what's going to happen? But I think it's just going to be kind of insane. All of it says. Again, this is new. An FPV drone strikes on Moscow Intelligence Gathering Satellite Center. So yeah, pretty crazy. When you look at that. So again, Ukraine struck a satellite center in Moscow region being used to gather intelligence for Russian forces for the second time on Tuesday, President Vladimir Zelensky said. In a post on Telegram, Zelensky said his forces had attacked the Donbas-based communications center some 500 kilometers from the Ukrainian border. He said the site was used for reconnaissance and for coordinating activities of Russia's forces in Ukraine. It also came under Ukrainian attack last week, the Ukrainian military's general staff said. So that's pretty much the news on Russia strikes. We've been seeing it for a long time. Nothing's really new there. Ultimately, that's basically what's going on. Nothing to our surprise when we look at all of that. Okay, when we look at basically what's happening with the entire war, World War III, it's all tit for tat strikes at the moment. And the entire global economy is basically on edge. We're weeks away from running out of oil, the United States at least. And we are continuing this war with Iran basically because Trump wants to go out with a bang. And meanwhile, again, I believe we have the oil prices that are being artificially kind of controlled right now, manipulated. We have WTI crude oil just under $70 at $69.98. Brent crude at $72.95. Mervyn crude at $69. And natural gas is at $3.25. So again, we're down a little bit on the oil prices from yesterday. Crypto's even worse than yesterday. So again, now Bitcoin has fallen below $60,000. So you've probably heard about this if you've been following the crypto market. If you've been following the crypto news today, you would know that since yesterday, again, crypto, Bitcoin itself has fallen from 60,000 to 58,000. Ethereum is now at $1,569.96. And XRP is again right back at $1.03. Okay. So again, XRP is down 6.39% in the last 7 days. Bitcoin's down 6.5% in the last 7 days. And just in the last 24 hours, Bitcoin's down 2.66%. The Fear and Greed Index is at 16, extreme fear. And so Solana's at $73.54. Hyperliquid, $64.96. So it's kind of huge when we look at all of this. The crypto market is not doing great. And again, with the Clarity Act not passing in July now, and basically debatably not going to be towards the end of July, early August, who knows if these prices are really going to go up until then. Until we have regulatory clarity, you're not going to see these crypto markets pretty much going up at any time soon. I think, you have, and you also have, what's his name? JP Morgan, Jamie Dimon is who I was thinking of. Jamie Dimon basically manipulating the entire crypto market right now. And when we look at all of it, it's just pretty sad, pretty insane to see, because you got the bankers being bailed out, and you have, again, the Jamie Dimons in the world that want to keep crypto basically low for everybody. So basically crushing the market for everybody. So absolutely just terrible. But we'll see what happens with crypto. And I think there's, again, I always say there's going to be hope, a lot of optimism for crypto. It's going to be the future of the tokenized economy. So buy those prices at a discount. In the meantime, we also have the stock market today with the Dow hitting records, the S&P 500 jumping to cap at the best quarter since 2020 amid the massive chip rally. U.S. stocks rose on Tuesday to a cap, a rip-roaring second roar that turned Wall Street's 2026 fortunes as investors assessed a remarkable run-up in chip stocks in the first half of the year and the dollar's growing strength. The Dow Jones Industrial Average edged up 0.3% to post a fresh record after a blue chip benchmark closed above $52,000. So again, we'll see what happens when it comes to the stock market too, but stock market seems to be really inflated, in my opinion, again, by more presidential statements, Trump's statements. Again, with this Iran war, good news on the Iran war, you're going to see that stock market basically going down. A lot of controlled pricing there, right? The S&P 500 gained 0.8% to post its best quarter since 2020. Meanwhile, the tech-heavy NASDAQ composite rallied 1.5% as chip stocks continued their furious second quarter rally. So the stock market's going up for now. But again, I think we're only weeks away from an economic collapse. So again, we'll see what happens if there's going to be a deal that ends up being made with this MOU that will really send the stock market soaring, I bet. And at the same time, you might even see prices go up with the other markets too. But that's pretty much what's going on in the markets. So again, let's get back to this entire Supreme Court story. Let's get back to what's happening with this entire, again, you had the House basically canceling this entire bill. And of course, nothing's loading because that's awesome. Nothing works because I have no storage on this laptop. That's amazing. It's amazing. Who doesn't love when there's no storage and you can't make your content? It's great. So again, we're just waiting for this to load. If it loads, I'm hoping it does. Again, no storage, so nothing's going to load. And so that's awesome. Just love that. Let's see if we can get it to load here. Yeah, so I guess we're going to have to go to the bookmarks. Let's try to load a new page. Unbelievable. Technology is just so awesome. Okay, so I can't open anything. That's awesome. So we can't open anything, of course. So with that being said, again, I guess we're in a position where we kind of just have to look at what else is new when it comes to what I've posted yesterday. So we'll kind of keep track of what's going on in the markets. We'll keep track of what's going on, or we kind of already covered the markets and what's happening. Again, we're trying to load X here, but X is just being terrible. And all of these pages I had loaded are now not loading, so that's the best. Everybody loves that. So, oh my God, how annoying. Well, I might just end it there then, because if nothing's going to load, then I'm not wasting my time. So, I guess this is going to be a shorter episode. My feelings on the subject, when I look at everything though overall, I guess I'll just give my analysis and my opinion on it and where I think things are going. I think that we are heading into a real tyranny. You know, apparently, again, I can't pull up the X articles because I don't have enough storage, so it's not opening my stuff. So I guess I'll just talk. At the end of the day, if we don't basically take action as Americans, if we don't actually fight back for what's going on in Congress, what's going on with our country, then we are in for a rude awakening. We're going to see a lot more corruption happening. The Save America Act is essential because it allows basically birthright citizenship at this current time, thanks to the Supreme Court. Amy Coney Barrett, basically, who has a Haitian child, conflict of interest, right? But because of that, she single-handedly thwarted this entire bill. And this entire bill now basically gives any kind of illegal immigrant who has a child birthright citizenship. And it says it right in the Supreme Court docket that if you are an unlawful American, you are seen as within the United States jurisdiction. So you're seen as a citizen. And it's just like, wow. So now my taxes get to go to illegal immigrants and those people who are not honoring our justice system. It's honestly insane. And that's the country that we're living in. And so it's like, why should we put up with that? Ultimately, you need to be contacting your Congress. You need to be actually making moves. This is why you need to run for Congress. You need to be the one who's taking action on your goals. And at the end of the day, you need to be the leader of your hometown. And so it's a pretty terrible thing when you see it all happen, when you see the injustice. Really just don't seem to care about Americans and how much they truly don't care about your interests. They care about their own interests, getting reelected, and that's what's happening next. Okay, so you have to think about the millions of illegal immigrants that are already living in the United States. And again, your tax dollars are paying for them. So maybe you consider yourself very, very virtuous. You know, you consider yourself a great American because you're you're not a racist and you're afraid to be called one, maybe whatever. Again, but at the end of the day, you're paying for these people to live here. And it's like, it's pretty unacceptable. It's pretty horrible, right? It's unfair to the Americans who have a job while these people are collecting money on EBT cards and they're collecting money on the welfare system and totally abusing it. And then they get to flash around an American passport, and basically everything that's happening in the UK is coming here to the United States. And so it's like, how and why should we really accept that? That makes absolutely no sense. Actually, we should reject that as Americans, and there needs to be some kind of, level of resistance to it. People should be talking about it. You should be documenting what's really going on. And again, you need to be able to speak the truth on it. It's just insane. Our country is completely being overrun. You have Dearborn, Michigan, and you have the police chief, who's a total coward, a total betrayer of the American people and the people of Michigan. And he's just like, humdulillah, humdulillah, 45% of our police department is now Arab. And it's like, okay, well, part of the oath that you take as a police officer when you raise your right hand and you take the oath is to uphold and defend the United States Constitution, not the Constitution of Yemen, not the Constitution of Abu Dhabi, not the Constitution of Saudi Arabia, not the Constitution of Qatar, not the Constitution of all these other countries or Israel. Your duty is to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States of America. And so you have these police chiefs like the one you have in Dearborn, Michigan, who are selling out their entire people. And it's like, it's disgusting. And it's like, how long are we going to put up with it? Why should you go to your job and deal with the shit that you have to deal with at your job? You deal with the crap that you deal with by your boss, the long days, the hard days like this where it's 105 degrees in Michigan on the heat index, and all the bullshit you think about that you got to deal with. And you have to pay all your taxes that you have to pay. And if you don't pay them, you go to jail. But those taxes are paying for illegal immigrants to stay here legally. Those taxes are paying for people to live in Dearborn, Michigan, where you could own a home. Oh, yeah, by the way, and they don't have a job. Those same people, many of them don't have a job. They say that they're ill, they are sick, they cannot work. And so you basically pay for their stay here. And who doesn't care? The Supreme Court. Who doesn't care? Well, of course, your Congress, the boomers in Congress who are making all the decisions and running things today. And it's just, it's complete disjustice. And so honestly, you look at the world, you go on Twitter X, what do you see? You see African Americans who are from like Sudan and Somalia. And, they are, again, you just heard about the story of this African American who was, he was like jerking it like on a beach with people there, and nothing happened to him. No consequence. Nobody does anything. Nobody fights back. Behavior, the country being corruption. So if you ask me, like, it's completely nothing with, as to quote the movie V for Vendetta, there's something wrong with this country, isn't there? And there has to be something that's done. People have to be willing to fight back, because we are living in a time now where tyranny is more popular than, again, justice and, doing what's right and standing up for what's right. So when I look at all of it, I think it's horrible. Ultimately, I guess I had to basically close this episode a little bit. I had to close this episode out a little bit early just because I couldn't pull up these articles. I was not able to pull up these links. So at the end of the day, my opinions on the matter, America needs to fight back. You need to be fighting against the H.R. 8800, the National Defense Authorization Act of 2027. People are legal citizens. They're not legal Americans. And not only that, but the people like Ilhan Omar, they should be classified as terrorists. These are domestic terrorists. They hate our country. They've said it publicly. They said it on interviews. and they say that they wish they could go back to their own country. So it's like, go the fuck back. Go the fuck back. We're not stopping you. If anything, we're going to send you there sooner. So it's like, go back to your home country. If you hate it here so much, go back there. Don't test our limits. The American people are getting a little tired of it. The American bound too much. There we go. I doubt this is going to make a difference, but OBS. Studio is a little complicated, and again, we don't have a lot of storage on this laptop, so that's probably affecting things as well. Maybe that'll make a difference. Ultimately, though, that's the main problem when you look at things in the United States and our country and why things are the way they are. We need to be fighting back. People are afraid to fight back. They don't want to say the truth. They don't want to lose their jobs. And again, in the meantime, while you stay at your job and you fight for your job and you be a great American and you pay your taxes, those taxes go to the EBT fund of these illegal immigrants who now get to call themselves real Americans with their anchor babies like Vivek Ramaswamy, who's running for the state of Ohio, basically as, again, an anchor baby. And people love him because he's a Republican, and they love him because they think he's an entrepreneur. And I don't like the guy. I don't like Vivek Ramaswamy. I don't think anybody like that. An anchor baby. These people should not be running for Congress. These people have no right to call themselves Americans when they literally call Americans dumb. He's called Americans dumb before. Okay? Vivek Ramaswamy has literally called Americans dumb. Not only that, he conducts interview in his bare feet and doesn't have any pride or, at the end of the day, he is not an American, and he shouldn't be able to call himself one, in my opinion. And so, when you look at what's really happening to the state of America, it's not like you really have any choice anymore. So from where I'm sitting, that's kind of what's going on today in the United States. That's where I'm looking at things, but we're going to come back tomorrow. We'll talk more about this and fix this stream up a little bit, and we'll have a little bit better of a stream tomorrow. But without further ado, that's all we have for today. Stay prudent, stay powerful, and stay wealthy.